Welcome to the second meeting of 2025 of the Louisiana Resilience Task Force. I want to thank all the members for coming out today, as well as everybody in attendance and everybody watching us from home or from their offices, such as they are. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call, which I should have printed out for myself. We'll go with Dr. Bentley Smith from Regents. Here. Mr. Krieger from Municipal Association. Here. From LD Department of Insurance, Mr. Patrick. They said they were running a little bit late, so I'll check them in when they get up. Mr. Patrick has just walked in. Senator Edmonds. Here. From CPRA, Mr. Michael Hare. Here. From GOSEP, Mr. Jeffrey Gearing. Here. From the Police Jury Association, Mr. Cormier. Here. From DOTD, Ed Knight. Here. From the Parish Presidents Association, Ms. Bankston. Here. From DCFS, Mr. Miguez. Here. And from the PSC, Mr. Fry. Here. Fantastic. Oh, Ms. Campo, are you joining us today? Yes. Oh, fantastic. Why don't you come on in? You can sit. You can sit right in your nameplate here. Mr. Cormier is going to vacate. Oh. And so we have two from Office of Community Development, Ms. Campo. And we'll just go ahead and get started. So we wrapped up we have not met since the 2025 regular legislative session. So I have a few updates to sort of share with the group. First, we have a new flood control entity that is created called the Current, the Coordinated Use of Resources for Recreation, Transportation, Economic Development, Navigation. You have the other T, Ed? That was transportation. Yeah, I just put a T in the middle of it. Okay, that's exactly what the body is. The governor is currently working through the list of appointments for that, and when we have public meetings for that, I'll try to see if I can get it out to our resilience list. I'll serve as a member representing resilience interests in the Office of the Governor on that task force. We also have updates to NFIP coordination. So the Office of the Governor, represented by me as the CRO, will be working with Department of Transportation on coordinating the NFIP uses, NFIP National Flood Insurance Program with FEMA across multiple state agencies, since I believe most of the agencies here, or some of the agencies represented here, touch that issue, as well as DOTD will be trying to assist the department as needed with those efforts and with the FEMA Review Council. So the governor met with Secretary Noem and the FEMA Review Council, made some public remarks. GOSEP has also pitched in with their official letters. So if anybody would like those, we can get those to you, and you can see the comments that state government has been working with to try to assist the president and the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security with FEMA reforms. Lastly, I believe there were several changes to the tax code with respect to fortified homes, which I believe our legislators and Department of Insurance people could probably speak to. But there are now tax credits for fortifying your home, and there are now tax exemptions for fortifying your home. You have both exemption and credit side. Deductions and exemptions for home fortifications. So those are, I believe, all of the resilience-related legislative instruments that passed this year, and I think it's an excellent start. So we thank our partners in the legislature, of which Senator Edmonds is here. And speaking of Senator Edmonds, City of Central is in your district, right, Senator? Fantastic. So without further ado, does anybody else have any updates or anything from the legislative session? Ms. Bankston. Oh, wait, I got to hit your thing. Yes.
No updates, just questions as a follow-up on the FEMA Review Council. Do you know any other timelines? I haven't had any more conversations since they've come in July, but I guess, what are the expectations moving forward what should we be hearing? Or
Yeah,
should we be hearing something?
So our comments were definitely received by the FEMA Review Council, and Louisiana does have one representative on that council through, it's early in the morning, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper. So we've been able to engage with them pretty consistently, but now I believe it's up to them to compile I don't know if they're going to come up with a draft report or just go to final. I'll try to get some updates on the timeline, but I was more focused on getting our comments in by the deadlines, and I'm not quite sure where they're going to be in their timeline. Okay, moving on, we'll go to our presentation today. So I prepared a slate of presenters today. All three of these are local governments, one city government, one parish government, and one special district, a drainage district. They've all done some incredible work with utilizing LWI models. Louisiana Watershed Initiative, for those who are unfamiliar, was a OCD and DOTD, Office of Community Development and Transportation Development joint program through the Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant dollars. That's a lot of acronyms, but the Watershed Initiative has been such an incredible effort to model on a watershed level and project prioritize for statewide flood control, specifically when it comes to riverine and rain flood events. And now that they've spent a considerable amount of time and resources over the last 7-8 years, 5 years? Okay, 5 years on creating these models, the next step is to actually bring that information to the decision-making level where it's largely in the hands of the people who deal with these issues every day, our local governments. So these three that we bring in today have really, I think, done some exemplary work that can be a model for all of their peers. And so I want to commend them and learn from them a little bit. Each of them, I believe, has an engineering partner who will be joining them, contractors who help them realize these projects to fruition. So we'll start with the City of Central, and that's Mr. Mayor Wade Evans and Stoker Brown from CSRS.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Esteemed members of the task force, thank you for having us. We just celebrated the 9th anniversary of the 2016 flood, and many of you know what calamity that was. In my community, 60% of the structures took water, and so it was a wake-up call for how do we govern properly? How do we allow development properly? How do we do what government's job is to do, which is to provide services to the citizens? It was a catalyst that brought me into politics because I had spent a life of not caring about politics until I put 200 houses back together in Central for people who felt hopeless. That thrust me into the political arena as a council member and now as mayor. But we learned early on, and the administration under Junior Shelton, the mayor, developed one of the first iterations of a true stormwater master plan through our partnership with CSRS. From the inception of that plan, we've been able to identify projects that are necessary for our community. And this is kind of a two-part presentation. I'm going to talk about what the city's done, and Stoke will talk about the smart stuff. I have ideas, and they have integrators for those ideas. But with the modeling and the new LIDAR that the state flew in 2017, I believe, we took that and turned it into a model, or our team did. And the idea was, how do we show the citizens that what's being developed is beneficial to them and not going to hurt them? And we were one of the first communities to acknowledge that the HECRAS model, while in design is great, but in practice wasn't being legislatively enforced. So we codified the HECRAS model.
Yes. While we continue, do you have the presentation?
Yes. If there's that laptop right there, maybe you might want to hand it to Mr. Brown. Yours is, I believe you remember the title of yours. If you click on that, then I can turn on the presentation. Would you like to start it now?
Well, I'm just going to give,
Yes.
and then we're going to give it to Stoker to
Okay.
do his presentation.
I'm just wasn't familiar with the acronym, so I had to.
Yeah, well, it's one. I'm not either, Chairman. It's one of those things that.
You got?
Anyhow, we developed a model, an offsite drainage analysis tool for our citizens that we put every development through to ensure that there are no negative impacts, neither upstream nor downstream. We've increased our detention requirements community-wide, and more importantly, we've started an intentional program to provide government services. Our job, we look at it as a job that's intentional because we don't want Ms. Smith to have to call us and tell us that her ditch is not draining. So it changed our public works delivery model with an intentional tact, if you will. And so it's been better for our crews because they have constant understanding of what they're going to do. It's not a wait on the phone call and then react. It's intentional. And what we've seen is a decrease in complaints, if you will, from the citizens, which is an indicator of an increased quality of life because their government's providing the necessary services to them. More importantly, we've used the data from that model to do a litany of things to enhance the quality of life for our citizens. And we're encouraging communities around the state to utilize the technology because it's good for your community. With that, I'm not going to bore you with my frustrations with the alphabet agencies. Having been a community that lost $40 million because of something that seemed political, because we don't believe floodwater is political. We believe floodwater does not discriminate. It doesn't care who you are or who you vote for or how much money you got. But with that, we're going to let Stoker go through the smart stuff because he's the brains of this operation.
And Mr. Brown, before you begin, I'll introduce people, but I've been reminded they should also introduce themselves for the record.
Want to introduce yourself?
I'm Wade Evans, the mayor of the great city of Central.
Thank you, Mayor.
And up next is Stoker Brown, 2Ks.
Thanks, Mayor. Stoker Brown with CSRS. So as the mayor said, the big catalyst is no secret 2016, and everything has sort of stemmed from that. And what we've sort of come to is to create a comprehensive stormwater management framework that you sort of see here. Each one almost equal as important as the other one, and combined do an excellent job of comprehensive stormwater management throughout the city. So I'm going to go through some of these and hit some of the highlights so that we're not here for an hour on just our presentation. So living data and hydraulic model management, as the mayor had mentioned, hydraulic models were developed from a lot of the data that was collected from the state, as well as information that was collected by the city. And those models are used for various programs across the city. The offsite drainage assessment program that I'll talk about a little bit later, which the mayor said ensures that any development within the city is not going to increase flood risk using these advanced models. And they're used to identify infrastructure improvements, which projects are needed, prioritize them, help go after grant funding. Updated LIDAR. So since the 2018 flown LIDAR by the state, the city has actually flown their LIDAR and updated themselves. And so we have a more accurate representation of what the ground elevations are based on the development that has occurred since 2018. And those are included in the model to keep them updated, what we call living models. And there's a QR code if anybody's interested in going to the online GIS website to see a lot of this data. Stormwater maintenance. So this is a very vital and often overlooked piece of stormwater management. The mayor has really dug in and looked at keeping these streams maintained. There was a lot of work done following the flood to clean out these streams. And the mayor has crews working daily, working across the city to continue cleaning those streams and channels because we can do the best job designing them, but if they don't operate as designed, then they're not working. And then another thing that I'll talk about later is that this interfaces with is community engagement. So it's important, and the community wants to know and see what's going on. Related to stream maintenance and cleaning, they only going to see what is along the roadside. So we have the GIS systems that they can log in, and we keep track and show updates on where the crews are, what they're cleaning, and what they're planning to clean next. Infrastructure system improvement. So as you keep your streams maintained and operating as designed, there is still need to improve them. So that is to expand and modernize it and reduce flood risks. The master plan, as the mayor mentioned, it identified over $135 million in proposed improvements. And we take those improvements, those projects, identify grants that could help fund and implement those projects. I'll hit on that a little bit later. We keep a track, again, community engagement and involvement. There's an online story map that kind of goes through all of the improvements that the city is looking to implement. Example here, regional Blackwater Bayou detention, as well as a now well-known 2030 master plan.
In the surf park.
And a surf lake. You can engage Facebook and learn a lot about it. So regulatory improvement. So that sort of hits on today, the maintenance, tomorrow in terms of improvements, but let's make sure we don't continue to create problems that will come in the future. And then we'll have to redo improvements again. So part of that was regulatory improvements that significantly altered the drainage code. And a lot of these were fed based on the two-dimensional HECRAS models that were developed. So community-defined flood hazard areas are essentially a sister product of the 100-year floodplain based on the updated models. Conveyance zones to identify where water is critical conveyance to move water downstream. Again, sort of a sister to the floodways of FEMA. And so the offsite drainage assessment that I talked about earlier is that any development that occurs within the conveyance zone has to be modeled in the two-dimensional HECRAS models to ensure there is no rise in water surface elevations across the suite of storms. Some other improvements, building and stream setbacks, construction and elevation requirements, sediment erosion control, substantial damage, and enclosures in the special flood hazard area, all important for ensuring resilient development, as well as maximizing the community rating system score by FEMA to help reduce insurance rates that I'll get into a little bit later. Funding strategy and grant applications. So as I mentioned, there was over $135 million of improvements that were identified in the master plan. To date, we have secured over $60 million. However, that asterisk actually is at the bottom that I don't see on the screen. Essentially, as the mayor said, the BRIC program was canceled, of which the city of Central had $40 million of award that was taken away. These are just a list of all the alphabet soup that we apply grants for, and still holding on to about $20 million and are looking for ways to get some of that $40 million back. Community engagement. I talked a bit about this on each one of the slides. I think this is a very important piece of stormwater management, effective, because the citizens have to try and have to know and understand. You don't like that?
I
there?
just know it's blocking stuff and it's starting to wear on me.
All right.
It's not our computer. So
Yeah, and very quickly while you click that away, I want to just say that even if this program doesn't move forward ultimately with that particular tranche of federal funding, it's still exemplary that you were able to put the a competitive application together to get that sort of award, right? I think you demonstrated to a federal partner that you were ready to receive those funds, that you were competent, that you knew exactly how to spend them, you had your benefit cost, and even if that particular tranche of funding goes away, it's still a very, very competitive program for anything related to flood grants, right? Or even from a state or local fund.
Yeah, and look, we're actually moving forward with a project, one of the smaller ones, and we're just going to go ahead and underwrite it locally because we feel it's that important. And I do believe once we show the federal partners that it's feasible and functional and will accommodate the future losses, I think it'll be easier for them to look at it and say, okay, this does make more sense.
Yes, thanks for saying that. So community engagement. This is, I'm a big proponent of engagement and education of the community to understand. I try to get them to understand as best as possible with the new technology and the imagery we get from these flood models. We can engage and help them understand a lot better than 10, 20 years ago when you could just look at a hydrograph on a graph, a line on a graph. And so what we have is a stormwater hub where they can get in, put in their address, location, understand what the flood risks are related to the model. Flood awareness, what you see on the bottom left here is IBTS does a great job of engaging and educating the public on flood insurance and the options that they have. Again, a vital part of the FEMA CRS program. And then twice a year we have a drainage summit. And this is where we invite the public to come out. We have multiple computer screens set up, and we've got a line of the public waiting to sit down with one of our engineers, tell them where they live, and we go over information. We show them what the model is showing. And the majority of the time, if not every time, they shake in the head and they agree with us. And once you can get them to agree with you and what the model is showing, then you've gained their trust. And then once you show them alternatives of what the model can create with these projects and show them that proposed development within the models that they trust is not going to increase flood risk, you now no longer get people coming to the council meetings where they're trying to fight new development. They're no longer coming to say it's going to flood me because the offsite drainage was done. They'll come and talk about traffic. They'll come and talk about overflowing schools.
They still fuss.
But it's not about drainage, and it's not that it's going to increase their flood risk because the city has taken steps to show them and has taken used the models to provide that example. Again, QR codes, if anyone was interested in looking at the information hub as well as the latest Drainage Summit document. So that Drainage Summit document, it's not just a big part of it is to get the community out there and sit down with our engineers to look at the computers. But we also talk about all of the improvements that have happened in the last 6 months. Right? Again, the city is doing and putting an enormous amount of effort into keeping up with stormwater management, and we want to educate them so that they're aware of what's going on. One of the latest iterations is the implementation of a flood warning system, the early flood warning system, what is called early flows. And so this system provides residents, emergency responders, and local governments with an additional source of information to help make critical decisions that can save lives and reduce damage. So the great thing about this is it's a fully automated system that's, again, utilizing those hydraulic models that the city invested in. It's taking in future rainfall from NOAA, a range of different forecasted rainfall events, running those through the model that is sped up to create to run these things in 5 minutes, right? A flood warning system is only as good as you can get the information out as soon as possible. And so those are sped up to produce those forecasted peak flood depths, which you can see on the screen here, an online site that the local governments and residents can go to and understand what could potentially flood in the future based on those forecasts. It's a fully automated system that does not require human intervention except to make sure that it's continuing to run. Forecast comes out approximately every hour or 6 hours, depending on that forecasted rainfall frequency. And also it's a full citywide coverage. So, you know, as the mayor likes to say, when it's raining and people have flooded, they have serious PTSD of what's going to happen. Am I at risk again? And this system can help provide an additional source for them to understand what their potential flood risk is, and can calm them and or potentially have them take action if need be. So with all of that information, we worked with IBTS to submit.
Paul, IBTS is our private general services contractor. For those of you that don't know, the City of Central does not have employees. We contract everything out. IBTS is our main partner, and so when he refers to that, that's who that is.
Thanks, Mayor. So recently, in the one-year latest revision, the City of Central was improved from a Class 7 to a Class 5, gaining additional over 1,200 points through a lot of the things that I've gone through on the slide, which is going to provide the residents a 25% discount, which essentially equates to nearly $1 million a year in savings on flood insurance for the residents of the City of Central. The flood warning system has actually not been included in those points, and we're going to work with FEMA next year to try and get additional points, which could potentially bring them to a Class 4. And with that, we'll take any questions, and I've got here on the screen QR codes for the different documents that I've shown.
Well, thank you guys for that wonderful presentation. We'll go first to Senator Edmonds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for being here today, and this is vital information not only for the City of Central, and I commend you, Mayor, for taking the lead on this, because I think when you walk the streets not only of Central, but the majority of my district was hit pretty hard of East Baton Rouge Parish, whether it was Livingston or whether it was the south part of the parish. I think you know that
Yes,
2016 was, we hope in our lifetime we never see anything like it again. In looking at your QR code and scanning down of these projects, so you've taken a look and saying, well, this project's going to cost about $18.5, and this one's going to cost $19. This one was $65 million. That was and that brings that total of the $130, $135. Was that how you broke it down?
Well, in the drainage master plan, I don't know if we even have any regional stuff in that. That is culvert crossings and increasing capacity in our bayous and localized watersheds. The issue with that, and we had a meeting with our federal partners early on when I got elected, is they don't want us to dig in those 5 watersheds. And so we've determined that we're just going to dig really big holes next to these watersheds to increase their capacity without touching their canals. And so that's where these regional detention projects that you see are. And what we've done is just determined, and I'll touch on this because I think it's going to require legislative change as it relates to properties that we do this at. And it's whether the city buys the property and contracts the project, or do we work with private entities to develop a flood control project, sell the dirt, mitigate it, do all that, and then we just buy the completed project. And that's where there's some issues. But those numbers that you saw on the story map, that's in relation to those big projects.
And so your attempt then from this point forward is you're speculating what the costs for the projects are, and then do you expect, are you finding that there are grant monies available for some of these for our federal partners, or had any success in that yet?
We actually, our combined project, we won through FMA and BRIC. And so it was a really good project, had really good numbers, really good return on investment. We were forced to make a choice. Do we go through the FMA or go through the BRIC program? And we chose BRIC, which was a bad flip of the coin because we would get a better match. A federal match requirement for BRIC was better than the FMA. However, now looking back, I wish the coin would have flipped the other way, and I'd have said, let's just pay a little more because that project and program is still going. But yeah, Senator, we're going to continue to apply for grants. I'm big on chasing dollars. I believe it's one of the best investments a local government can make as it relates to their money, is to try to parlay it into multiple dollars, because most of these grants are matches where, a 90-10, 80-20, 75-25, any of it is allows you to parlay your money into house money to get these things done.
I work with Senator Foyle on capital outlay for this area and in our Senate side, and I was wondering, is of any of these capital outlay dollars, did they cross over into any of your projects for East Baton Rouge Parish in general?
You had some with the Five Bayous project, and look, the Five Bayous project has become something that it's kind of laughable to me, because the two bayous in Central that are going to get work are really not going to get anything except they're going to cut trees and clean them out. They're not going to improve their capacity at all. But there has been capital outlay money for that through the parish.
Well, it's that time of the year, so I certainly would hope that with this kind of data that you would at least make application and try to move in that direction. I'd be glad to help.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be coming to you, Senator, for capital outlay on these projects, because we do need some help, and I think the overall cost benefit is tremendous as it relates to FEMA and flood insurance.
Yeah, the final thing that I have is that many of us got in boats and went in these creeks and bayous and toured and tried to get hands-on idea of what we could do, is both on the immediate and on the long term. And my question is that, have you been able to work with, because it affects East Baton Rouge Parish, but it also, Ascension was a big part of that as the water flows, and if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, that coordination is critical. So I don't know where you guys are on that as well, but I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah, and we're trying to get me on the Amite River Basin Commission to take some of what we're doing in Central as far as the regional detention and bring it throughout the basin. There's multiple opportunities for that, and it's something I've talked to Mr. Sawyer about. How do we take the information that we've learned and map it out in the basin? Look, the Amite River Basin is probably one of the most influential basins in our state in terms of floodwater management, and so I think that's where our push locally has been. How do we increase this throughout the basin?
Coordinate that. Yeah. I serve on that as well. Mr. Sawyer's here today, and I think we have a report from him. But I think that coordinated effort would be critical for your, because you've done a great job of getting the data, but now we've got to implement some of this.
I agree, and I believe the ARBC is actually a better tool. I think we can do more than just dig a diversion canal. I think the ARBC can help smaller communities throughout the basin, and I would love to be a part of that as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Cormier.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, thanks for being here. I appreciate your comments. And I'm going to piggyback on what Senator Edmonds said. As a guy who lived it and breathed it and was a parish president when the flood hit of 16, saw an issue where a parish had done a whole bunch of parish and a / city had done a whole bunch of drainage work all the way up until my parish line, and never notified me that they were doing it. They didn't have to at the time. To this day, they still don't have to. But because I hadn't done any improvements on the channels that they needed to get through, it just pushed all the water back on them. And although I had a whole lot of flooding, if I'd have known, and I could have maybe engaged my council in trying to do some work to help them out, we possibly could have avoided that. So I guess my question is, what have you done? Although you talked about a lot of community engagement within the city, and you lie wholly in East Baton Rouge, but I know your water has to flow through Livingston and a few other areas. I know that because I often say I felt like I gave birth to the Watershed Initiative, because when it happened, when the flood happened, I immediately got on the phone within hours of the rain falling and gathered all the 8 parishes that surrounded me and said, we got to do something together. And that led me to come, the governor calling me, to come into your area to speak about what we're doing. And honestly, when I came, I met a lot of resistance. I mean, Livingston and Ascension were at, and I know that's all been worked out, but have you, like, how engaged are y'all with the parish properties that have to I mean, I know y'all holding some stuff for retention and detention, but eventually that water has to go out. You said it. Water knows no political boundaries. It has no socioeconomic. It's just a flood is a flood. I guess I'm asking a question, but I want to encourage you too to make sure that you are talking to the people where your water needs to flow.
Oh yeah, for sure, Mr. Cormier. I think the biggest problem, and this is why we've kind of shifted gears, is I can't send it downstream faster, so I need to store it. And so the work Central's doing will actually help the watersheds downstream from us, because we're going to retain that water for longer periods of time. The issue is, again, look, I could work with our surrounding parishes and communities, and I could have a dredge in the Amite River tomorrow. But they just won't let us do it.
Sure.
And so we've had to figure out a different way to skin the cat and essentially keep the water more localized for longer periods, since the work downstream hasn't happened and can happen. I don't think there's any lack of desire or intentionality from any of the parties involved. It gets quite frustrating to spin your wheels. Look, we received a $3 million STAG earmark in 2023, and it's just dragging. Like, give me the money and let me do the projects.
I wore your shoes, brother. I fully understand the pain you're feeling. I wore those shoes for 20 years. But I want to just also say that, from the good work of Senator Edmonds and this legislative body, we created, the LMA and ourselves created something called LIDACORE. I'm going to have Leslie Durham reach out to you. I'm sure
I've met with Leslie. Central's too affluent.
Yeah, you've tapped into a lot of the funds that we go after.
Yeah.
But you just never know.
No, but I would encourage the senator and his colleagues to continue to fund LIDACORP.
Yeah. Because
the work they do is essential for the communities that are not like Central, who have, $1 million a year to go spend chasing funds. So I would encourage that as well.
Yeah, we were hoping when we started it, we were going to get between a 3 and a 4 to 1 match on return on investment. I think we're right around 6 now. So we're placed a lot of money in communities that this legislative body doesn't really know about yet, but we'll be making a report to them here soon at JLCB to let them know that. But thank you for the kind words and for the push. Good luck with your efforts, and I really enjoy your city. I love going there, and you have a beautiful place.
We appreciate you.
If I can add, you'll both talk about the Amite River Basin, and I think the Amite River Basin's in an excellent position to show how this can really work and succeed from a watershed boundary standpoint. A lot of what the Watershed Initiative talks about, and like the mayor just said, water knows no boundaries. And the Watershed Initiative was set up to start the idea and thinking in that manner. And the Amite River Basin was already a commission, and they took advantage of being that and starting, and then started taking advantage of the data and the models. They just finished their master plan. And so, they're on the way to eventually become and create sort of this comprehensive stormwater framework. And we've talked with Paul Sawyer about what Central has done and how and potentially this could be scaled up to that level. And then I think from there, it's just sort of copying and pasting it at that level across the state. And then you can have this at a statewide level. So the state's on the way there. The LWI has been a significant investment, and it brings the state to have the potential to get there with their investment in the data and the models.
Yeah, so I'm extremely impressed with what you've done so far from a guy who works statewide. I just want to tip my hat to y'all. Y'all really taking this seriously and made it a priority, and it shows.
Thank you, Mr. Cormier.
Thank you.
And by the way, I couldn't have planned it better with all the teasing of Mr. Sawyer's presentation later. It's like an episode of American Idol. We're really laying the groundwork for you, Paul. We'll go to Mr. Krieger.
Good morning, Mayor Wade. I'm Brett Krieger with the Louisiana Municipal Association. I'm actually a gray beard and mostly retired, but still work with LMA. And I want to start by highlighting the shout out to IBTS, because I was with IBTS back in 1912 or 2012 and 13, helped put the proposal together and get the contract. I was on the board of directors for Institute of Building Technology and Safety, 501c4 in Washington areas in Fairfax. And at that time, I shortly after that switched over to LMA, started working with LMA on various projects. And then the flood came in 2016. And boy, I just want to highlight how proactive Mayor Shelton was at the time on being innovative and trying to figure out what do we do now immediately to try to help. And then what do we do in the future to try to make this better when it comes? And there were two answers. One, I don't know, you were on the council at the time, is that?
I was not. I didn't get on the council until 2018. but
Okay.
Junior and I have become very close.
Okay, I didn't recall seeing you, but one of the things
I had a
was
beard down to here back then.
shotgun.
Different. I look different.
Well, one of the things he did was he took our advice and was just lightning speed increasing permitting and inspections to get people to be able to get permits and start clearing their houses out and rebuilding, reconstructing. And that was a massive operation because, everybody in a flood gets overwhelmed on permitting and inspections. And we put together a very innovative program, and he was gung-ho to do it. And IBTS at the time, it was David, I can't remember his last name.
David Ratcliffe.
Yeah, Radcliffe. That was our second guy. I think the first guy was out of Shreveport that we sent down initially. But what he said was, we have got to start a better documentation program on how we manage, how we keep our canals clear, what we do to reduce our flooding so we can improve our insurance rating, and so we can improve our grant potential and be able to document cost-benefit analysis for these grants. They're going to come 10, 20 years from now. So we're 10 years downstream now, basically, where we were. But just wanted to provide that shout out to Central for being so proactive. And it is not easy to hire a very expensive engineering firm. But when you get your money's worth, you find out it's worth the money. You've got to have somebody help you do the engineering and the documentation and the work with people like Amite River Basin Commission. Back when I was with LOEP, predecessor of GOSEP, I helped form the Amite River Basin Commission. And we talked about Darlington Reservoir. That was going to be this big detention system until everybody got involved and wanted to turn it into a reservoir with a lake and jet skis and restaurants. So it was going to be full of water. So detention is still a major effort that it requires a lot of coordination and cooperation because Jay Grimes every year used to do his annual hurricane thing. He'd always talk about flood insurance was one of the things he'd highlight. And he'd always say, how do you answer the question, do I need flood insurance? Well, do you live in Louisiana and does it ever rain on your house? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, you probably need flood insurance.
Correct.
And what you want to do is make sure you can get it for as cheap as you can possibly do it. But I just shout out to Central for being so proactive and so effective over the last 10 years since we first started talking about this.
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. We stand today on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. And look, I'm fortunate to have been blessed with the amount of discernment I have to assemble a team of not just CSRS. I have an amazing team of engineers, but we believe in hiring the firm for the best from what we need, not just because a firm may can do something. And so we've been very fortunate.
I want to say at the time we talked about, and everybody wrote up, we had it in the LMA Municipal Review, lessons learned from the 2016 flood. We call it the Great Flood at the time. 36 inches of rain in 36 hours or something like that. It was horrible. But what we talked about was lessons learned. And I remember writing in the article at the time, I said, the problem is we always, following disaster, have what we call lessons learned. usually their lessons noticed.
Correct.
Very few continue to act on and take the effort and the time that you have taken in Central to actually learn those lessons and take action because of them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. And thank you guys for coming and sharing this with us today. I think we'll have to move on so that we can get to our other presenters. But again, I wanted
Thank
to
you.
bring you guys in to share this wonderful work you've been doing. It's you could be an example for your peers around the state. So thank you.
We appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Without further ado, next we'll have a presentation by Calcasieu Parish and just Fenstermaker, right? It's a mononym now? Okay. Okay, yeah, I was used to saying C. Fenstermaker and Associates, so we'll go with that. But you'll still have to introduce yourselves for the record as well, so.
You need to turn me on? Or
Yes, I do.
Okay, I see it's on. So Charles Fenstermaker, president of CH Fenstermaker, really do want to thank y'all for letting us come show off what we think is a really neat project we did for Calcasieu Parish. With me, I have John Hornsby on our team, Alan Wainwright to my right, but I also brought from our team Dr. John Foray and Austin Ducey, who was a project manager on LWI. Just wanted to give a quick background to Fenstermaker. We are a Louisiana-based firm. We have a little over 200 employees across Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Shreveport. And like I said, we were one of the only local firms, or the only local firm, to manage a significant portion of the LWI, or Watershed Initiative work. So this is exciting to get to present some of this stuff. In a second, I'll turn it over to Jean, who's going to talk about the actual, as it was said earlier, the smart side of the work. But it's exciting to show off because the way I look at what they did with Calcasieu Parish is it is soup to nuts what the future of LWI and the data collected should look like, I think. And to me, I appreciate this meeting because one of the concerns I've had as a generalist in the room is that you collect this data and the longer it sits on a bookshelf, it can get stale. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alan Wainwright, who's the Director of Public Works for Calcasieu Parish, and let him talk about how they began this journey and where they are.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak here today and tell our story and hopefully, share how we done some things. I'll tell you, I'm Alan Wainwright. I graduated here at LSU in the late 1900s, as my little brother likes to say. I worked here just down the street at the East Baton Rouge Parish City Parish Government as I got out of college, and unfortunately went through a few much smaller floods. Some of the stories I just heard from Central, I participated in some flood management back in those days. I was just getting started. It really set my career on a path of being in the floodplain management business ever since. I have been I'm the Director of Engineering and Public Works, but we certainly do a lot of drainage related focus in everything that we do because of my years here. I applaud y'all on what y'all have been doing at the state level and everywhere else. And listen, I just want to commend Cynthia Central because I know nothing about what they're doing actually in real life. I've had the blinders on and working in Calcasieu Parish. But I can tell you from the presentation they just gave, they got it going on because the struggles and the things that I just heard them say that they have passion they're doing are exactly the right path to be on for our city. And before I forget to say it, I would like to say that I think it's great that you have a parish here and a city because it's two different worlds out there. We found that out quite frequently. So those municipalities have a little bit different struggle. They're much tighter boundaries that they're working with. We're in a parish, about 1,100 square miles of parish to deal with over there in Calcasieu Parish. So I know Central's a lot smaller. So it's just a totally different puzzle that you're trying to put the pieces together too. So having both perspectives, I think, is critical as you go forward and try to fit it together for the state of Louisiana how you do that will be a challenge because it really isn't one size fits all. And I've learned that the hard way. We did ours in Calcasieu Parish, our study, and I'll try and get to that. In a minute, we incorporated the cities into our program as much as we could. So we did the whole parish, and we did studies for them and things like that. So we worked in kind of an opposite direction, and that sounds like they're having to do. Even that way, though, is a challenge because you can't pass parish ordinances, if you would, and have them apply in the municipalities because it's just too different of a lay of the land just across the street in reality. So,
Can we get the PowerPoint up?
yes.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the people on your team who work on drainage day in and day out. It's a very, very noble profession and something that is so necessary in Louisiana. You know, you might think that it's unsung heroes, but I can remember the names of some of the people in Louisiana, from H. Baldwin Wood to Eads, who designed the Eads jetties down in Southwest Pass. I mean, these people, the work that you do really does echo through history. So I want to thank all of y'all for the work that you put in on this, and we hope to see more progress as we go forward and find more of those funding sources.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, as we sort of referenced earlier, last but not least is Mr. Paul Sawyer from the Amite River Basin Commission. You need no introduction, really.
See. Yeah. All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the task force, my name is Paul Sawyer, Executive Director of the Amite River Basin Commission. I'm joined by my colleague Seth Bradley with Dewberry Engineers, who were instrumental and led the team effort for developing our master plan. I'll begin by saying this. If there are three things that I want you to appreciate from this presentation, is that, number one, the Amite River Basin Commission is working together like never before. And I'll describe a little bit more about the Amite River Basin Commission, but it's an entity that's been around for a very long time, and it's performing multi-parish level. It's performing much better than it ever has. Number two is that the Amite River Basin is a dynamic system. So a lot of times we talk about the coast of Louisiana being a dynamic system. The Amite River Basin is a dynamic system. You build something over here, it's going to impact something over there. And then also, lastly, we've completed a master plan that I believe is historic in nature. The Amite River Basin Commission hasn't done anything like this before. I don't think there's been anything like this done in a watershed in Louisiana quite to this depth. And we're not just leaving it on the table. We're actually building projects from that master plan. So with that, I'll begin with the who are we? Who's the Amite River Basin Commission? So we are a water resources, flood control, conservation agency in the Amite River Basin. The Amite River Basin is 7 parishes: East Feliciana, St. Helena, East Baton Rouge, Livingston, Ascension, Iberville. So, folks forget that there's a piece of Iberville that's on the eastern side of the river, as well as St. James. We are a coastal basin. We are an upland basin. The southern part of our basin is influenced by tides. We are a coast. We have parishes that receive GOMESA funding. So the lower part of our basin is coastal. The upper part of our basin is going to eventually be a member or a component of the newly created Current organization. And so our little basin is sort of a microcosm of the state of Louisiana. And the state of Louisiana is a microcosm of the United States of America. the Mississippi River in the Mississippi River Valley ends up in Louisiana and is funneled through two small parishes. The Amite River Basin extends from the Mississippi River and extends through the two fastest growing parishes in the state, the most populated parish in the state, and it ends through a little spigot in Livingston Parish. Our board, our commission, is comprised of 13 voting members right now, of which 7 are parish presidents or police jury presidents. So the parish governments are represented on our board. They have double skin in the game. That means they have to worry about and focus on drainage and flood protection in their respective parishes. Now they have to look at it at a basin-wide level. And I referenced earlier how we're cooperating now like never before. So we mentioned events like the 2016 flood or any flood event, and usually when that first drop of rain fell, the weapons came out and followed shortly after by the lawyers. The parishes did not cooperate, and reasonably so, because they were concerned about drainage and flooding in their parishes. Their first priority was to protect their citizens. And so the Amite River Basin Commission gives them an opportunity and a venue to work together, to problem solve together. And this has never been done before. And we're really excited about this level of cooperation. I mentioned the 7, the other 6 are subject matter experts. And so these are engineers, hydrologists, biologists, project designers, the smart people who give great consideration to how we design and what we design. And so the marriage of those two, the intellect with the politics, because you can't build infrastructure without the combination of the two. You can have great ideas that stay on paper, which stay on a shelf for years and decades, but unless you have the ability to convert that idea into action or into a project, it collects dust and eventually mushrooms. And so we believe that the construct of our agency now is it's at its best in the history of this agency. The agency was created in 1981, and frankly, we have underperformed. We have absolutely underperformed. On paper, we are responsible for every drop of water in this basin. We're responsible for flood control. We're responsible for projects, project development, other ordinances and regulations, which we don't have. On paper, we have the cape and the outfit. But in reality, we do not have the superpowers. The superpowers come with funding, as has been mentioned below or earlier. However, we are plowing through that with new cooperative engagement among all of our parishes. We're working together to identify funding and to convert that into projects. I'm staying stuck on this slide for a minute, and I'm going to zip through these because I'm respectful of your time and our proximity to lunch. But I think what's also important, I may not have heard it, but I think it was alluded to earlier by Calcasieu and Finstermaker, that a lot of their product, I think, was established primarily out of lessons learned from Laura Delta Zeta, and of course Rita. I think statewide right now we're commemorating the 20th anniversary of Katrina. Obviously, as a state, that was such an impact to the state, and we've learned a lot of lessons from Katrina. But then it's also been mentioned, the local Katrina, if you will, was the 2016 flood, and when it happened in 2016. The Insurance Institute of America described this flood event as the 4th costliest natural disaster in U.S. history at its time, the 4th costliest. And you can imagine everything that went underwater and what that impact was. following the 2016 flood, within 4 years, following following Katrina, within 4 years, there was a functional, though incomplete, hurricane protection system. It was functional enough to redirect and divert and protect against the energy that came from Hurricane Gustav and other events that have happened afterwards. It was incomplete, but it was functional enough to protect New Orleans. 4 years after the fourth costliest natural disaster in U.S. history at its time, there was nothing to speak of in this region. I'll remind you, two of the fastest growing parishes in the state, the most populated parish in the state, probably the largest consistently performing GDP in the state with our combination of industry plus flagship university plus state government, and nothing had been done. We're coming up on 9 years, and substantially, at least in terms of regional flood control, flood protection, nothing substantial has been done. Nothing that I would compare to what took place after Hurricane Katrina. We're nearing completion of the fabled Comite River Diversion Canal. That's a Corps of Engineers project that was authorized back in 1992. I was there. 1990. I shouldn't have said that. No, now I've aged myself.
I was born that year.
Huh? Thank you. Yeah. I'll leave it to the task force to decide which is greater, Comite River Diversion Canal or Chairman Schweiber. So, but the Comite River Diversion Canal was authorized that year, and it was authorized at $187 million. And today, that project is approaching $1 billion. I would argue more than $1 billion, and it's incomplete. And it probably won't be done for another 4 years at least. And that project was designed for a historic flood that happened not in 2016, and I would argue not for the record event that happened in the greater Baton Rouge area in 1983, but for a flood that had happened previously in 1973 and flooding that had occurred before that. So what am I trying to communicate here? There has been a collective failure in this area for decades, and in 2022, the legislature recreated the Amite River Basin Commission, Act 490. And thank you, Senator Edmonds, then Representative Edmonds, for your leadership on that. I think the legislature and collectively officials and especially constituents and residents in the area were fed up and said, enough is enough. And the legislature reinvented the Amite River Basin Commission, reestablished just completely reconfigured our board, and directed us to put together a master plan. The master plan is intended to be modeled off of the state's coastal master plan. It's a smaller version, but it's supposed to be based off the state's coastal master plan. So I mentioned earlier that the Amite River Basin is a dynamic system. I mentioned that we are coastal, we are upland. And so in the upper part of the basin, on this map, northern region and the upper reaches of central region. And I guess for just ease of conversation, there's a gray line that splits that map in half. That's I-12, I-10, I-12. So approximately speaking, everything above I-12 has elevation. Everything below is flat, has almost no elevation. So everything above, for the most part, above I-12 has valleys and hills. I make it sound like Colorado. It's not, but it's got more contours and topography than the lower part. The lower part, imagine pouring a cup of water on the table in front of you. That's the dynamic that's occurring in the lower part of the Amite River Basin. And so when you build a project over here, it's going to put water on somebody else somewhere else. And so we have to be cognizant of that when we develop projects, when we protect ourselves. And we have seen in the past when parishes take very responsible steps to protect their citizens, they do it within the boundaries of their parish. Up until recently, they've done it within the boundaries of their parish without much consideration of what's going to happen to that water in the next parish. And they'll go get their coastal use permits, and they'll go get their Corps of Engineers permits. They'll get everything that they need, and they'll get the sign off. But they find out later that, wait a minute, you're going to put water on this parish or that parish. And that's when I've said that the weapons come out and then the lawyers come out. The Amite River Basin Commission has changed that, and we recognize this dynamic. We recognize this dynamic, and we work collaboratively to solve problems together. As this slide says, we have a large basin, 2,200 square miles. We have the 7 parishes. I've described the topography, the elevation challenges that we have in the basin. And this is another view of what that looks like. On the right, the topographical map on the right, it demonstrates the elevation differences between the northern part of the basin and the southern part of the basin, and why that's important. We've talked about the 2016 flood. So, that was a biblical event. Some characterize it as a 1,000-year event. I would argue it's a 1,000-year event. You can't base a flood, a master plan or any kind of flood plan management based off an event like that. But it was very illustrative, very instructive on how we proceed in terms of managing the Amite River Basin. 2016 demonstrated what happens when everything goes wrong. In the upper part of this basin, in the reddish areas, in the 2016 flood, that's approximately where most of the rainfall occurred during the 2016 flood. Not exclusively there, but for the most part, it was in the upper part of the basin. So when you have elevation in the upper part of the basin, what happens is that water drains quickly. It's got to have a place to go, and it drains very quickly, and it rushes. It's like this whole room rushing to the exit and trying to fit through the same door. That water comes from creeks and bayous rapidly in what we call flashy rivers. You know the term flash flood. Flashy rivers where these events put water in the stream quickly, it drains quickly, and then it evacuates quickly to the lower part of the basin where it just wants to spread out. It wants to go everywhere. The worst case scenario, as in with an event like the 2016 flood, you have a southeasterly wind coming off of Lake Maurepas, or high tide. I mentioned that the lower part of the basin is our coastal parishes. High tide. Well, if that elevation is slightly higher than the Amite River that's trying to drain an entire basin, you've now got conflict in the basin where now that water has nowhere to go, and it wants to spread out, and it will spread out. Water has an opinion during floods, and water's opinion always wins. These are examples of flooding in the Amite River Basin. You all are familiar with these types of flooding, but just to articulate, though, at the lower part of the basin, I mentioned we have tidal events, we have wind events, and that influences the drainage impacts as well as the flooding effects in the lower part of the basin. So we have those coastal and wind-driven events, backwater events. That's what happens when during, say, the 2016 flood, our example, where the northern part of the basin had effectively drained. I mean, there were still lots of areas that were very wet and still underwater, but for the most part, the upper part of the basin was draining. And there were a couple of days of sunshine. However, in the meantime, the lower part of the basin, you've got the Amite River. Let's see if I can go back on this. You've got the Amite River. Let me try this. You've got the Amite River coming down. That's the gold ribbon going through the basin. So the upper part of the basin is draining. The lower part of the basin is starting to receive that water. I mean, they already had rainfall as well, and now that water is going up. There's another gold line just above the word Iberville Parish. That's Bayou Manchac, and so now the water, the backflow water, is now going back up Bayou Manchac, which means that Wards Creek in East Baton Rouge Parish, it drains 70% of East Baton Rouge Parish. That water is going back up. Bayou Fountain is adjacent to and parallel to Highland Road in East Baton Rouge Parish. That water is going back up. And so that's the effect of backwater flooding in a basin this large. And then, of course, you have flash floods and rainfall, which I think we all experience. But we experience it even more so when there's not effective draining. And so the legislature said enough is enough. We want you to develop a master plan. We want you to look at all of the ideas to combat flooding and reduce flood risk in the Amite River Basin. We want you to model it off of the CPRA master planning efforts, but instead of 5 years, we're going to give you 8 months. So we did a very quick job. Dewberry, our lead engineering team, who developed the plan, fortunately, they had worked with the Office of Community Development and Department of Transportation and Development to model the Amite River Basin back in 2019, and that gave us a good head start. So what our master plan identified were actions that we can take, policies that we can implement, and projects that we can develop. Largely speaking, we have the benefit of having a huge resource and library of data available to us. The Amite River Basin is probably the most studied patch of land in the United States. The Corps of Engineers has looked at it several times. DOTD, OCD, Amite River Basin itself has, and then all of our parishes are doing their own individual master plans. And so with this data, we want to help our constituent communities to not just raise flood awareness, but we want to provide them the tools to help improve their flood awareness and reduce their risk. And that can be from either sharing our data, making communities more flood aware, as well as we would like to take on the task of helping these parishes revise their much outdated flood maps. We believe that if we update these flood maps, we will have a significant impact on flood insurance premiums in the basin. We believe that we would take a lot of structures out, frankly, of flood zones. I think we would put some structures in that are currently not in flood zones. We would put them in, which could mean some residents are paying flood insurance, and all of a sudden some who had not been paying it are now paying it. What's important is that we are fully cognizant of the risk. And by risk, we speak of risk in terms of insurance, but risk is people, risk is cars and homes and businesses. It's all of the stuff that's going to get damaged and destroyed when there's a flood. And so by removing or mitigating the risk, we're managing a smarter cohabitation with this increasingly growing and increasingly developed geographic area with the water that we're living with. I mentioned earlier I just mentioned that we believe that we could take structures out of flood zones and also put structures in, but doing so, we believe, could achieve a savings of $25 million a year. That's $25 million a year that's not being paid in flood insurance premiums, which means that's automatically, by definition, discretionary income. that is money that goes back into the economy. That's not the reason to do this, but it's important to appreciate that we can take steps. Our Amite River Basin Commission can take steps that will have an economic impact on our constituents, our stakeholders, while also increasing flood awareness and reducing flood risk. I'll describe briefly the kinds of projects that we're working on, the kinds of projects that the master plan has identified. I mentioned earlier the Amite River Diversion Canal. That's a Corps of Engineers project. That's not our project, or we are a partner on that project. But right now, that's being driven largely by the Corps of Engineers and DOTD. But what that project does is that it takes water out of the basin. It takes water out of the basin. The Corps of Engineers in the 1980s actually developed a pretty good concept for flood control in the Amite River Basin. They conceptualized 5 projects, one of which was a reservoir. Somebody had mentioned it earlier. There was a reservoir idea in the upper part of the basin, which would keep water from entering into the basin. It would hold it from entering into the system, I should say. The Amite Diversion Canal would take what makes it through and divert it out of the system. There's another project that would restore the natural conditions of the Amite River, just like the Mississippi River wants to meander, the Amite River wants to meander. But over decades, it has straightened out. We estimate that the Amite River has lost approximately 5 miles, 4 to 5 miles in river distance. And what happens when the river straightens out is that it increases velocity, which means more people moving more quickly to exit the door, so to speak. And it also increases the sediment load that's going to end up at the bottom of the basin. And when that happens, the bottom of the basin is overwhelmed and it causes flooding. Another project, another idea is to improve the flow of Bayou Manchac. Bayou Manchac is a waterway in East Baton Rouge Parish that doesn't really have its own flow. It's subject to other influences. Frankly, it's subject to its tributaries. It's subject to a large swamp basin to its south. And worst of all, it's subject to the influences of the Amite River. It's ultimately trying to drain into the Amite River, and that depends if the Amite River wants it or not. If the Amite River is higher elevation than Bayou Manchac, that water's not getting out. And so I mentioned that 70% of Ward Creek is, 70% of East Baton Rouge Parish is drained by one waterway. Combine that with Bayou Fountain, another major waterway, and you're getting most of the parish draining through 2 waterways and going someplace where it just doesn't want to get out. Lastly, there was a project idea to that's also in place right now. I think somebody mentioned earlier another project called 5 Bayous. That's a project by the Corps of Engineers in cooperation with East Baton Rouge Parish and the City of Central, and that's designed to evacuate water out of East Baton Rouge Parish. So those 5 concepts were created in the 80s, and the concepts are still solid, but what we're doing is trying to emulate those concepts in various forms and fashions and through a variety of different projects. On our webpage, and I'll give you a QR code and also make this available to you later. On our webpage, we identify all of the projects that we're working on. Our entire master plan is on our webpage. We have a map that shows the interaction of these projects, as well as estimates of 100-year flood impacts on the basin. So, over a period of time, we estimate that the average cost to the Amite River Basin, flood control damage in the Amite River Basin, averages approximately $210 million a year. No, we don't have $210 million a year happening every year, but when you look at the spectrum of events that have occurred over the course of 25 or so years, then you average those costs out, and they amount to approximately $210 million. I'll just remind you that after the 2016 flood, the amount of federal assistance alone was more than $10 billion. And frankly, it's still growing, more than $10 billion. If we do nothing, we estimate the cost of the average annual cost to increase to $550 million. That's an enormous sum. With our master plan fully implemented, we expect to cut that by more than half. The cost of our master plan, one could say, is $3.5 to $4 billion. Wow, that's a lot. That's eye-popping. Well, no, I would argue it's not. The cost of doing nothing is eye-popping. That's the same argument that we make with coastal Louisiana, that what used to be a $50 billion, now $70 billion project, it's something that our entire state believes is worth dying for, and we've committed abundant resources to restore our coast. I remind you that we've done nothing substantially in the Amite River Basin, and there are a variety of reasons for why that is. And I'd be glad to go over all of those. But we know now we are focused from every elected official, every community leader in the 7 parishes in this basin. We are aligned to do what is right, do what is necessary to mitigate the floods, mitigate the damage, mitigate the risk, and to protect our basin once and for all. And so with that, thank you very much for your time. I would also be remiss to point out that 2 of my commissioners are 2 were present. One is present, Mr. Knight with DOTD, and Mr. Hare with CPRA, who probably doesn't realize he's one of my commissioners. So I will make this available to you. This is also available on our website, amitebasin.org, amitebasin.org. And I'd be glad to entertain any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. We'll go straight to Mr. Cormier.
Yeah, Paul, just want to thank you for your work you've done, you and Congressman Graves have done prior to you taking this job, and the improvements that you have made or committed to make moving forward. I don't know if you were in the room, but I'm reminded of when then Governor John Bell Edwards asked me to go meet with those 7 parishes, and meeting a lot of resistance. In fact, I think former President Kenny Matassa still don't talk to me to this day because he thinks I was trying to convince him that he needed to get flooded. And I'm like, no, this is just all of you guys working together. Sounds like you guys have come a long way, and I think it's because of the work that you have done. So just wanted to compliment you on that. As we were sitting here, I got a text from, and I know she's not watching this meeting. She's my former Public Works Director. Public Works Secretary. And this is me kneeling on the ground with a physical map and a set of color markers marking where the water had actually flooded my parish. And so we've come a long way, and I've seen all the technology that you guys are going to implement. This is all I can do. I actually got up in a helicopter and flew. I knew the parish better than anybody because I had every road, and I had to maintain every road. I actually flew it and made some markers on my phone, took some pictures, and then got back and physically marked a map where the parish had flooded and where we think we needed to go. I say that because I was out the room when Fence to Maker got up, we finished up, so I just wanted to compliment them for all the technology that they're continuing to get along to the parishes to help them move water. And so I'm just complimenting, not necessarily a question, but just complimenting you on where you are and the direction you're headed.
Thank you. I'd like to comment anyway. So what the City of Central and CSRS have done, and Calcasieu Parish and Fence to Maker have done, is admirable. It's fantastic. I mean, those are the right tools that people need, that communities need to fight the flood, if you will. And in the Amite River Basin, we want to scale that up. We want to take the tech. We have the ability. We have the data. We want to scale that up, and we want to partner with our constituent stakeholders like Central and other communities to scale up so that those tools are available to citizens. We described a lot today of the utility of this data for citizens, but then also we want to make this this data available to the design community, because we're still going to be developing and building. And so how can we do it where we can cohabitate smartly? I think somebody mentioned earlier, we have to stop building our problems. And if we have the tools available to us throughout our basin at least, and hopefully throughout the state, we can stop building our problems. And then also to the point about cooperation, the resistance that you felt, you could have been from one of our parishes, and there would have been resistance within the basin. At that time, there was no cooperation, and it was a 5-alarm emergency for everybody. And so instinctively, every parish president did what they were supposed to do, protect their citizens and fight whoever didn't want to help or whoever was contributing to the threat. And up until now, that meant their next door neighbor.
Sure.
And now, it's unprecedented. Certainly in this basin, it's unprecedented to have this level of cooperation and this level of planning together, working together, trying to get ahead of problems, and trying to problem solve together. So.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, everything we heard today was a lot of it is about funding, right? So not saying money fixes everything, but it sure does help. And so I didn't want to negate the fact that you guys, through Congressman Graves, who was always going to be a dear friend of mine, yourself personally, I've had conversations with you on behalf of parishes to get funding to help these issues. You have done everything you could to do it. So I just, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, thank you for great information. I hope that the public, as they listen or will archive and listen down the road, or this task force will understand this master plan is it's a remarkable undertaking. I think the best and worst of my meetings with you has been around water. I think because most of our meetings have been really good. And I think Garrett called me one. I haven't forgiven him for this, but invited me to a meeting I had to come to. It was absolutely the worst meeting I've ever been to, and it was built around the devastation around 2016 and the frustration, and rightfully so, of residents that were. I mean. I can't describe it. It would take us, I think you know it because you sat in all those meetings. And also, I hope we understand this Comite River diversion and the frustrations that we've had, the meetings that we've had, the task force meetings that we've attempted to push the core. So thank you for all of that level of frustration, yet not giving up and bringing us something that this is going to affect next couple of generations. This is generational change, and we've got to implement this. These projects, whether it's Darlington or whichever one of the 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 that we have to do, this is one of those things that we have to cooperate together on, find our way. I think we have been correctly stated earlier. This water's it's gonna find a way to move. There's no way we have to cooperate and figure out a way to cooperate with the water because it's gonna move, and our constituents are all gonna suffer. Black, white, young, old, green, brown, Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. We've seen that in 2016, we've seen it in Katrina, and I'm sure, unfortunately, it won't be the last time that we see something as devastating. So with all that said, again, I want to take the opportunity to say, I served with you now for 10 years. We couldn't have a better leader than you stepping into this. We're more than fortunate. We're blessed. So thank you for the good work, and I look forward to trying to help you accomplish this together as partners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Sorry, what was your name again?
Oh, Seth Bradley with Dewberry.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate y'all coming in today and sharing that with us. We're approaching the public comment period as well, so if anybody would like to if anybody has anything to come and speak, or then please fill out one of the white cards and give it to the staffer who would give it to me. I just want to say thank everybody for coming and presenting today. It warms my heart that that all of them have touched upon the coordination between the state, the local entities, the neighbors, the public, the Drainage Commission, the Parish Council, everybody. That's exactly what I was hoping that the conversation would lead to today, and make us realize that we can all do our part to make sure that all the people that we impact as state agencies, as state actors, as locals, that's the really where a lot of the meat of the work is. We've seen a lot of the data to dollars pipeline, right? Every one of these 3 projects included the data that they needed to get to that return on investment. People do not make investments, whether it's a federal dollar, a capital outlay dollar, voting for a millage, or fortifying their own home, if they don't know what the return is on that investment. So that's exactly what motivates people at the end of the day to come forward and make those investments that they need in order to make their lives more resilient to wind, flood, fire, whatever kind of risks that there is out there. And I'd like to touch on the fact that we saw a lot of different priorities that are touched by these efforts. We saw with Calcasieu, they had water resources as one of their priorities, protecting their water resources. For Amite, we saw conservation. So it kind of was one of those reminders that water touches absolutely everything that we do. So everything we do requires even deeper coordination. And with that, I actually don't see any public comment. But if 2.5 hours of drainage talk is not your idea of fun, I don't know what to tell you. Thank you, everybody, for coming in today. I know we all got busy schedules. So seeing nothing, meeting adjourned.